watch the news and we read our news feeds, we see that we are living in a community and a society that is polarized, in many ways divided on either political issues, maybe even religious issues, and ethnic racial issues. And we are, as a community, I think on a whole, many are searching on how to get back to a more positive representation of ourselves. And I want to talk to somebody today who has a pathway to get back to that positive representation, someone that has a formula. So joining me today is Galen Guengerich, who is the Senior Minister of All Souls New York, and he's written an incredible book called The Way of Gratitude. Welcome, Galen. How are you?
I'm good. It's wonderful to be with you, Maaria. Thank you so much for all you are doing and for showing us a way forward.
So Galen, as you join me on moving forward, what is gratitude?
Well, gratitude is a sense of feeling a deep connection to ourselves, the people around us, and the natural world. It's a recognition that we are made up of relationships. You know, if you take the physical entities that make up the world and take everything else out and squish them together, you literally would have only a handful of material. Everything else is relationships. So gratitude is the recognition that everything that makes life possible and meaningful to us comes to us from sources beyond ourselves. And how else could we respond to such a gift other than gratitude? But it also means that we recognize that we owe something back in return to the people and world around us. So I like to say that gratitude is a life of reciprocity with other people and with the natural world.
So let me ask you, the book titled The Way of Gratitude, I understand your definition very clearly, and I think it's such a beautiful way of how you phrased it. But the book is really written for people who are looking for spirituality or striving for a connection. Would you agree?
Yes.
And a connection to who?
Well, to themselves, to a way of life that has meaning and purpose, one that leads to a sense of joy, one that explains how we fit into the big picture and what our responsibilities are. And, you know, in the old days, people went to church or temple or synagogue and learned there how to be a good person, supposedly, and how to live. But increasingly, people are not participating in religious community. And if they are, it's just more because of the social justice or the community. And I was looking for a way to articulate how we should live our lives in light of what is really true about the world and what is truly real about the world. And so this way of gratitude is a way of life that I think honors the relationships that make us up, but give us a way to make decisions about how we should live.
So it's interesting, right, Galen? Let's take, you are in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and we're having this conversation while both of us are in the United States. And the world globally is connected through technology. And within the United States, there's many people that have a lot compared to many developing countries, right? Resources, and just different things that are available. And let's take a snapshot of a family living in the United States that has a roof over their head, technology, food, entertainment, family members, everything that you would describe as things that help you build relationships with each other. And why do you think that we still see in a lot of families a disconnect and unhappiness, even though they have so much to be grateful for?
Well, that's a very good question, Maaria. And I think the interesting thing is that this digital technology that enables us to connect with each other and has actually made the coronavirus pandemic easier to deal with in some ways, because we have technologies like this one that we can connect from a distance. That these technologies also have increasingly isolated people. People feel more lonely. Um, the rates of depression among teenagers has tracked almost exactly the rise in screen time. So I think our sense of being connected is not a virtual experience. It needs to be a real experience with real people, and nature and the environment around us uh, that isn't just us sitting looking at a screen, that we can reach out to other people. And that's why, ironically, once you reach a certain level of household income, it's about $50,000 a year, rates of happiness do not increase with increases of household income beyond that. In fact, they start to decrease.
No, this is fascinating. So there's a couple of things that you stated. One is that it seems like as you're moving up and the more you have, there's no correlation between joy and happiness
Right.
and what you have as far as material things. And secondly, that the screen time has somehow also had a parallel track with depression in young teens and students.
Mm-hmm.
And that nature, which is not man-made, is something that gives you joy. I guess my question would be then, has the technological advances, in many ways, let's just keep it as screen time and
Mm-hmm.
convenience, has it somehow disrupted our ability to appreciate what is real?
I think it has, because, virtual reality is exactly that. It's virtual. And technology is a wonderful thing. Don't get me wrong, particularly when we're dealing with medical crises. We need all the technology we can get. So technology isn't the problem. It's like any other tool. It can be used for constructive purposes, and it can be used for destructive purposes. And so I think what we need to do is think about our relationship, not just to technology, but to the media and to the marketplace. I mean, today, a lot of people take their cues for what to think, what to do, what to buy, what to watch from either the media, who says, watch this, listen to that, or from the market that says, buy this, buy that. All of those things are fine to do. But if you continually just respond to stimuli from other people telling you what to do, this is not going to add up to a meaningful, purposeful, and certainly not a joyful life. We need to look elsewhere for how to do that.
So how do we then, and what would you say to people? How do we get away from those distractions? And what is that path? What steps do we need to take to go to that elsewhere place to find that joy?
Well, I think it's a matter of keeping things in proper perspective. I think screens are a wonderful thing. I spend an awful lot of time in front of them, but I also spend time when I turn them off. And I try very hard to talk to other people in person. Over the last couple of months, it's been my wife is the one person I can talk to in person. And that's been a wonderful thing. But also to take a walk occasionally and to spend time not in built environments, but in environments that kind of let my imagination soar and help me remember that I'm a part of a magnificent, wonderful world that has a life of its own and that I am part of it. So I think it's a matter of not being at the behest of screens and of the market, but recognizing that they serve a purpose. They are tools that we need to use, but we can't be controlled by them.
So it seems like the one message that really, I think, resonates with many people that you're stating is the feeling of belonging, right?
Mhm.
If there's different distractions and messages that are causing this lack of joy and disruption and anxiety, and in some cases depression, stepping outside of that and going into the elsewhere space, whether it just could be a walk with nature that's non-man-made, you feel like you belong, that's home turf for you. You specifically wrote your book focused on individuals who are searching for spirituality. And before we go into, why you wrote it, I guess the question is, well, how do you define spirituality?
Spirituality to me is the experience of being connected ultimately to everything, all that is present in our lives and our world, as well as all that is past and all that is possible. Now, if you take the biggest form of that experience, it's what has often been referred to as the experience of the divine or the ultimate or the one. And none of us ever, of course, have that experience fully. But that feeling of being deeply connected to other people, to the natural world, of being part of something extraordinary and having a role to play, that larger experience to me is the experience of spirituality.
So do you think in the last 30 years or 30, 20 years that there has been a rise of people wanting to connect and find a pathway to spirituality and a connection with the larger world?
I think so. And I think it tracks closely the decline of participation in traditional religious communities. If you're a part of one of those communities, for the most part, you don't have to think about what's really true and what's truly real, about what to believe and how to live. They tell you that.
Mhm.
Um, but if you step away and say, well, they may have some purpose in my life and I may be a part of it, but when it comes to ultimate questions and ultimate answers, I need to look elsewhere. The question is, where is elsewhere? Where do you look to find what today for us is really true and truly real? And that was a journey that I took, leaving a very traditional religious background, conservative Mennonite, which is sort of like the Amish, except not quite so much, and going out on my own, recognizing initially that I was taking my cues from the culture around me, from the media and the market, but that's the same form of doing the same thing all over again, other people telling me what to do. So this journey that I've been on to discover what I can know for sure to be true, figuring out, so how does the world actually work? And what place do I have in it? And how can I live a life that resonates with the way things really are, that gives me a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and most of all, a sense of joy? And that's the way of gratitude as I have discovered it.
In these polarizing times where people are tired and feel let down, how do you move forward every day on your way back to A, gratitude, and B, that spiritual connection to our better selves?
That is the essential question, Maaria. And I think several things. First, particularly given the turmoil that is happening, particularly in our nation and some of our large cities now, I think it's important to remember the nature of the task. This nation was designed from ground up, not to be a place of equal dignity for everyone. Our founding documents say words like that, but when you look at how the institutions were built and how the laws were created, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to privilege white people, particularly white males, of Protestant faith over everybody else. So the fact that we are still living with some of the elements of those commitments in those institutions should not be a surprise to us. We have to rebuild or tear down some of the structural violence and rebuild it. That's hard. It's going to take time. And it hasn't been all that long since laws actively discriminated against people of color in housing and employment and all sorts of other things. So I'm reminded of a poem by the 19th century poet activist Ella Wheeler Wilcox, who says in a poem titled Protest, humanity has risen on protest. That if it weren't for protest, we'd still be using Inquisition and the guillotine. And that those few who can must speak and speak again to right the wrongs of many. So I think the protests that are underway are necessary. Obviously, violence for the sake of destruction is counterproductive. But this nation has gotten to where it's gotten to make things more equal and more fair because people were willing to speak out and people were willing to protest. So I think part of the work we need to do is the work of extending human dignity to everyone. And I love that you used the word optimism. As you know, the word optimism comes from an ancient word that means power. It's the power to do the work that is ours to do. And one of the things that I like about the way of gratitude is that it's always focused on possibilities. Gratitude looks at problems and sees possibilities. So one of the things that keeps me going, even when things are very discouraging, is the sense that a better future is always possible. And so I ask myself, what can I do today, in this moment, to expand the possibilities of the future, to make room for more human dignity, for more beauty, for more reciprocity, for more of a sense that we're all in this together. That's my work. I think that's our work. And that sense of possibility, things can be better. And we have the gift of another day. Let's do the work that is ours to do to extend the possibilities as much as possible.
I want to thank you, Galen, for showing up to be the person that you feel you're called to be. I want to be thankful to you for giving us your time and your insight for writing a book that gives people a pathway to gratitude. I want to be thankful for you to recognizing that many people are searching and that reminding them of just that fact alone that they belong is so powerful. I want to be thankful for connecting us to nature. And most of all, I want to be thankful for reminding us that gratitude is going to take us where we need to go. So thank you so much. And I appreciate every minute of this conversation.
It's been a pleasure and honor, Maaria. Thank you.
And as always, I bid you peace.